All right, we're back. It is February 5th, 2023. The New American Realist co host here, Brian Norris, retired, first sergeant in the Army, over 20 years. Why not ask him about the balloon? I think it's a perfect topic for today. We'll make it short and sweet, and I have not talked to him about it at all, which I find
No.
very interesting. We just kind of met up today and said, okay, what's the topic going to be? I had it on my mind, of course, to talk about the balloon.
Das Balloon.
Yes. And I said, I'm not going to tell you what questions I'm going to ask, as usual, off script. So I'm very curious what he's about to say because I really can't put my finger on it besides a couple of things. And we'll go over that in a minute. So let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the first thing, I was caught off guard by how quickly everybody got so obsessed about this balloon, but we don't care at all about the millions of people that are invading from the southern border. To me, that's a far greater crisis in terms of defense and sovereignty of our nation. And everybody was yelling, "Oh, sovereign airspace! The sovereignty of our country is gone." But you're not worried about the millions of people. And it's not just Latin Americans or South Americans or Central Americans. They've caught terrorists down there. They've caught people from ISIS. They've caught people, Russians. They've caught a lot of Chinese. I mean, there's a investigative journalist down there that hired some Chinese interpreters to walk with him so that he could talk to them because there were so many Chinese. But no one cares about that one. Why? Because they were told not to care about it. They were told to care about this balloon. However, I have a great friend who is extremely inquisitive and extremely intelligent, and you're not going to pull the wool over this person's eyes. She is an investigative person by nature. She was a journalist in a previous life, but she never let that part of her go. And you're not going to be able to lie to her. She's going to be able to figure it out. So she sent me a list of questions a couple of days ago that I've had some time to digest and look and try to find some answers on. And honestly, it's some of the best talking points when it goes to this. So let's just go right into it.
Okay.
When was the last time, if any that we know of an aircraft from a foreign country flying into the U.S. mainland? Well, it depends on your definition of foreign, right? September the 11th, we had a few planes that flew into some trade towers in the Pentagon and landed out in Pennsylvania. They weren't necessarily foreign planes, but there were foreign enemy that took them over and flew them into the buildings. You also have drones that are unmanned that fly constantly, delivering drugs and other paraphernalia and even other foreign nations spying in American soil. That happens all the time. All the time. So if you want to talk about a purpose military operation to break our sovereignty and fly over our airspace, Japanese in World War II, they flew balloons loaded with incendiary devices on them so that when the balloons would crash, they would burn out the forest and stuff in the West. The Japanese became very keenly aware of the jet stream. So they would launch these hot air balloons up from Japan. They would catch the jet stream, and then they would make their descent. And when they crashed, they had incendiaries in them that would burn. And there was thousands upon thousands of acres of wildfires that was set off by the Japanese. Next question. If there wasn't a prior known time, what is the significance of this incident now?
Can you read that question again?
If there wasn't a prior known time, which there was, what is the significance of this one? Which is a great question, honestly. And why was this one made out to be so much, as I alluded to when we first started talking? The Japanese destroyed thousands of acres, and nobody really knows about that today. The Japanese even invaded the Aleutian Islands in Alaska and took over some of the islands, but they didn't, no one talks about that today. And this balloon flew directly over numerous radar sites, intercontinental ballistic missile sites that are nuclear capable, and it hit all of our triad nuclear options, right? So the first one is detection, and your triad, the three levels of defense for it. On the Aleutian Islands, there's one of the world's largest, most capable radars on one of those islands. Flew directly over that. Also in Fort Greely, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Station there, flew directly over that. Montana, same thing. And then in Missouri, that third set, so you have the radar, and then you have the Minuteman missiles. Well, in Missouri, you have the B-52 bombers that are nuclear capable. So that's every tier, all of them, that goes to our nuclear deterrent. It flew directly over every single one of them. And, you know, more disturbing about that is we knew when this thing took off in China. We knew it did. We knew when it was flying over the Aleutian Islands. We knew when it was flying over the Canada and then into the continental United States. There was plenty of opportunity to down this bird when it was in the middle of nowhere over water, even in the middle of nowhere over land. They chose not to. That's a great question to try to figure out. We don't know. The next one, this one's a good one too. What makes this aircraft different than satellites that are already flying over the United States? That's a fantastic question, because I would argue that when it comes to spying and signal intelligence gathering capabilities, the satellites are probably far more capable. Of course, I don't know that for sure. I wasn't there building them, and we don't know what the Chinese have or the Russians have exactly. But we know for a fact that the capability exists for someone to put a quarter out in a parking lot, and a satellite from space can tell you the date on it. We're not up in arms and concerned about that. We do it to other nations. They do it to us. Was this balloon capable of getting clearer pictures, picking up some more frequencies, learning some more? Maybe, but how much more could it actually do than one of the satellites? I think it would be minor, if any. In fact, I would suspect that the satellites would probably be able to do more. However, this goes back to where do you define your limits at, right? If you're on the maritime, in the ocean, 3 miles from the land is international waters. If you come within 3 miles, now you're in sovereign waters of the United States. For aircraft, it's 45,000 feet. The balloon was flying at 60,000 feet. So in international law, the balloon technically wasn't breaking our law in our airspace. It was above that threshold. So it goes by definition and the altitude marker, and it comes down to the powers that be deciding that it's breaking our laws. And they chose that this one is breaking the laws, but the satellites are not. To me, the more important thing about this is that I think that the satellites are probably more capable. So why did China decide to do a balloon? It's a statement from the Chinese government at the United States government. And it's a finger in the chest, provoking us, right? And the next question, which I already kind of answered, was, are there any risks of taking this down over general population? If we can land a craft on an asteroid in outer space, collect stuff from it, analyze it, and have that sent back to NASA, you mean to tell me we can't take down a freaking balloon and mitigate its fallout? Or did we choose to shoot this down over the Atlantic Ocean so that once that capsule hit the water, it would break apart from 60,000 feet, 12 miles up, and go into several thousand pieces and then fall to the bottom of the ocean where it's almost impossible to collect anything from it, right? Mm-hmm. If you shot this down over Montana or over Alaska or over any of these other sparsely populated areas, you'd be able to gather some pieces to start putting together to try to figure out what exactly it was capable of doing. And what now we don't know. And we're probably never really going to know what all it was capable of doing. It might have been
whatever
nothing.
They tell us, nobody is going to believe. I mean, I don't know who is going to believe anything they say anymore.
That's perfect, because this is her next question. Government officials have said they are concerned that shooting it down would pose a risk to civilians below. My response to this is, name a time in the last 3-5 years to where the experts have not been lying. And that's the real crutch of all of this. I can't believe anything that they say anymore because they've been proven to be liars over and over and over again. In fact, most of the time when they say something, I start assuming the opposite.
Yeah, that's kind of what my motto is for a while. I just go opposite. I just watch
What?
mainstream media, lamestream media, and then I just go the other way.
You'd kind of be foolish not to.
Yeah.
You know, COVID we know now, was not what it was made out to be. They told us it wasn't made in a lab. Now we know that it was most likely made in the lab. You know, the list goes on with everything over the last couple of years. So,
Oh yeah, that was a really big wake up call for those that were kind of half asleep a little bit, and now they're like, "Whoa!"
Well, I'm from Missouri, so show me. You know, because Missouri is the show me state. So I'm not going to listen to you anymore. You got to show me. And I don't even trust your video.
So here's the question: how many more questions you have from this lady? Because I'd like to hear your opinion before we close out on this. Before we go any further.
Well, she has several questions on here that are kind of in the same realm.
Okay.
One of them, I think she asked that I think we could get to is about, is there any rule that the U.S. military can't go into action on the U.S. mainland? And if so, what is this jurisdiction? Well, this is a posse comitatus. It's the act of 1875 that says military cannot enforce civil law. That's the enforcement of civil law on the American citizen population. However, if there is a direct threat, then the military can absolutely engage it over the U.S. mainland. If Mexico was to invade and we're jumping through the streets in El Paso, Texas, or Dallas or Phoenix, then absolutely it's within the purview of the Department of Defense to engage, destroy, and repel those actions. And would there be American civil casualties? Most likely, but that's, kind of the stakes of the game.
So just listening to these questions, and obviously you don't want to go out there and just come up with some answers that you're guessing, but I will have to ask you to sum up the questions. The things that you said you don't know for certain. What is really in the back of your mind right now? Like, why do you think this whole thing actually took place? Why is it so, like you said, why are we talking about it so much? And why did they wait so long to take it down? And why did they take it down over the ocean so we can't gather any information on this thing?
Well,
your best educated military veteran guess.
Well, for China to do something like this, honestly, it would have to be making a statement. What that statement is, I don't know if China in fact did do this, which they said they did. So I'm fairly certain that they did. That's a direct, overt statement of.
Is it a possibility they're going to invade Taiwan soon, and they're going to use this because there is another balloon coming somewhere else, and you touched our balloon. It was at that high, and it was illegal. Now we're going to go to war. Is it just an excuse to go to war?
I think our government honestly let it hang out there in the news cycle for so long because it was great cover for them to do whatever else it is that they're doing without facing much scrutiny. Hey, look over here. Everyone's talking about it, and that's all they're focusing on.
And don't look over here.
And it'll probably come out in a few weeks what else was going on during that time. But by then it's too late, and the American citizen's attention span is about this freaking long. So, good luck on that one. Will China invade Taiwan? If I was Xi Jinping, I would. Absolutely. Because it is a vital asset for the Belt and Road Initiative of the Chinese Communist Party to seize Taiwan. Seizing Taiwan gives them complete control over the South China Sea. 70% of the world's commerce transports through the South China Sea. If you control that area, you can effectively control 70% of the goods flowing through world goods.
If you were communist Xi, you would have.
I would.
You would have went after Taiwan.
I think honestly, in all actuality, that most of the Taiwanese people aren't opposed to it, and that's another thing that you won't hear about from our media.
Interesting.
The
Okay.
Taiwanese are more closely aligned with the Chinese and the Communist Chinese Party than they are with Western freedom style. They like socialism. They like that structure. They like living that way. That's how they enjoy things. They love the security of it. They like being told what to do. It's a way of life for them that's very comforting.
Here's an interesting one that kind of really ties this all together. Somebody, I forget the name, I'm going to find out and post the link down below. Somebody tweeted and said, listen, I believe all of this obviously is a major distraction. Okay. We're going to have a false flag, cyber attack. Me and you talked about in this channel about EMP and everything. They know that the currency system is definitely falling apart right before our eyes. We talked about that on previous videos as well. There has got to be something here to happen. The globalism agenda is falling apart globally. People are out in the streets, not in Canada and United States. There is just a lot more sheeple in United States and Canada, unfortunately, than anywhere else. But everywhere else, from Dutch to, so many parts like Italy, you go to Sri Lanka, the actual insurrection that took place last year. I don't know if you've seen it. Like there has been so many because of inflation and everything, basically socialism. So now I'm looking at it like
Sri Lanka was from ESG, equity, diversity, inclusion, whatever that crap is. That's going
so
on.
globalism falling apart, the agenda.
They would not allow the Sri Lankans to farm their own land because it was too destructive to the green movement.
Bring people down to their knees, let them beg for food, basically, so they can have everyone desperate to accept this new, whatever, digital currency, the reset, which I always called it, reset is communism.
It's troubling how many... The attack on food stocks worldwide. I mean, it's undeniable at this point. You have all of your major food distribution facilities across the United States have taken a hit of somewhat.
What's communism's best friend? Man-made famine.
Yeah.
It happens every time when you study communism.
You grew up in it.
It comes in. It's what I talk about all the time on Twitter. A lot of people share these news because they know that I've been talking about it from day one, as everybody was talking about a currency reset. I've been pounding at the table. Unfortunately, I'm correct here. It is not just currency reset. It is spiritual reset. It is reset of everything.
Definitely think there's a spiritual component to it.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear that story of Stalin bringing in a dog and beating the crap out of it, like cutting it with a knife, just wearing it out? And then he's doing this in front of all of his, compatriots there at the Kremlin, at the palace. And then he takes the dog and he throws it off in the corner and he was like, watch this. You want to see how easy it is to just get a person to do whatever it is you want them to do and thank you for it? He takes some biscuits and lays it in his hands and calls the dog over. And the dog still comes over and eats it. And he tells us, he's like...
Yeah, that's very interesting because I have a similar story to that. I don't know which one is true or not. It really symbolizes communism. Did it really happen exactly? I'm sure there is a lot more to it with actually human beings, not just animals.
Well, I mean...
With the chicken, you heard about it?
Yeah.
Live chicken, slowly taking feathers off of it.
Oh, it was a chicken, not a dog.
It was the chicken.
Yeah, it was a chicken, not a dog.
And then
Yeah,
he
correct.
had the chicken in his arm.
Yeah.
Right? And the poor chicken is bleeding out because he took slowly feathers. And then he had like one of those, seeds or some. And then he said, watch what happens when people basically are desperate, when they are wounded, they got no food, they're just going to follow you. And that's what's happening right now. And I agree with you. There are really no answers for the balloon. That's the shocking news here. It is distraction.
What would have, if America just ignored it, what would have happened with the story? I mean, of all the things that's going on in the world, who gives a crap about this balloon?
Like you said, the border is wide freaking open, man.
And
We've got terrorists
we're sending
that are walking in.
billions to Ukraine to fight a losing battle.
Is it another pandemic out of the air coming in? Is that what it is? Like we haven't had it already, I guess, for the last 3 years.
It just goes to show you the ineptness of the American leadership. We are so focused on everything that doesn't matter. Look at our infrastructure. You take out the Eastern Seaboard electric grid, and it's going to take a long time. And 70% of the electricity comes from the Eastern electric grid. 70% of American electricity.
We're gonna
comes from
go.
that.
We're gonna go
and it's decrepit.
100%. We're not gonna have electricity soon. Internet is gonna go down. I don't know how long it's going to be, but it is going to happen,
we'll
and
see
it's
on
all
that.
because of this balloon. The
Yeah.
EMP is going to happen. It was Russia or China, most likely Russia, right? We're going to put it all on Russia.
Remember when I talked to you about how
Yeah.
governments get their people prepared for war? Right? How long have we been pointing the finger at Russia and saying that they're bad, they're doing all this? We're pinning everything on them as the bad guy. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's been going on for a long time. Just remember recently with the was the Russian collusion shit and all that happened.
if you look back in history, name a country that went to war that didn't do that. The Nazis did it. The British did it countless times wherever they went. I mean, the Tutsis did it in Rwanda. The Hutsis and Tutsis. All because of what, I mean, those people didn't even realize what was coming to them when it happened. And when people were kicking in their doors and chopping them up with machetes. We have gotten right now, most Americans, if you talk to them about Russia, they think they're inherently evil and terrible people. They know nothing about them other than what they've been told.
How many people, percentage-wise, what do we got here? 380, 400 million people, roughly? We don't know, obviously,
I
because
think
the border is
360,
open.
370 plus
Okay.
the illegals. We're probably shooting at around 390.
So do you believe over under 10% people knew and ever heard in United States about Ukraine? Or to
Before
point
that?
it out on the map, if you had no names, of the countries and
From what
show me, where is Ukraine?
From what I've seen with, thousands of young soldiers entering the military and then seeing their exploits and then watching events, I don't think that you could get 10% of the American population to point out the United States of America on a map.
I'm not shocked by you saying this, because when I worked in casinos across the country, I worked one of those cruise ships, like not really like a long distance cruise ships, but whatever. It was one of those short ones. So I've been all over working with so many different people, right? And every time somebody would ask, where are you from? And I would tell them, like, I was born, let's say Croatia, right? Or something like that. I understand it's such a small country. But they wouldn't even know when I say it's in Europe.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't know that most, like 8 out of 10 people I talked to, and they were like 25, 30, 35 years old.
Could care less, man.
Okay,
And
these
only
were
do they
not
know, but
teenagers.
they don't care.
Not that teenagers should know where Europe is, at least, but I can understand that. Maybe you didn't go to school or something, But you got a 30-year-old man doesn't know where Europe is, doesn't know it's a continent. I mean, it's just that this is why, to sum this up, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the government thinks, and not thinks, they are confident that they can run all these stories with balloons and everything that's going on with the recent health event, what's been going
they
on.
had you
They can-
convinced
yes.
that you could go to a restaurant, but when you walk through the restaurant to your table, you're not safe and got to wear a mask.
But if you stand up, it's
But if you sit down, you're safe.
was
and
it
you can
sit or
take
stand up? I forget.
If you're
You
sitting down eating,
Okay.
you can take your mask off.
Okay.
But the
'Cause
moment
I
you
got
stand up, you got to
confused.
put.
I asked the guy one time, I
mean-
said, is it okay if I stand up?
They had people convinced that were playing musical instruments to put a slit in a mask and play their play their instrument. That's somehow safe. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Closing up gyms. But
Everything that could have been.
we can have
beneficial.
McDonald's open. Really?
Well, alcohol, fast food, alcohol, strip clubs didn't shut down. I mean, come on, man. You're worried about a communicable disease, but you can still have strip clubs.
Yeah, and they can fly. It's no big deal. Nobody's even talking about this. You hear, some
Well, they're
tweets
talking
here
about
and
they
there.
want amnesty. Now you've seen all the people saying they want COVID amnesty. We didn't know. We were just trying to be good people, following the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is it okay if I stand up or sit down? And the guy's looking at me like,
How many times
well,
it-
if you stand up. So I stood up. This was funny. So the guy was like, I think 5'5", right? I'm 6'2". And I had one of those, whatever, dress shoes that have the heels. So I must have looked like 6'4" when I got up, maybe 6'5".
Mm-hmm.
So when I stood up, I was over the guy. So I told him, "Is it safe now?" I mean, he's not in my space, right? I mean, it just got to the point, like, you got to have a little fun with this because it's so stupid. And the guy started laughing.
One of my
'Cause
favorite
he's like,
things
"I'm
to
just
do-
working here. I'm doing my job." You ever heard about that?
Oh,
I'm just
yeah.
doing my job,
doing my
right?
That's what the brown shirt said too. But one of
Yeah.
my favorite things to do is with the kids when we're out and I see someone wearing a mask, I'll grab them and be like, "Come here, kids, they're sick. Stay away from them." And just look at them and kind of huddle away real quick because they have absolutely no idea what to do when I start doing that.
Yes.
You know,
Just incredible.
We saw someone today driving by themselves in their car with a mask on.
All right, I got to chime on this one real quick. I was at Dollar General, ran out of what do you call hamburger buns, right? So I'm like, I don't want to go all the way to the store, right? Because it's not like I have too many stores around me, as you know. So I go to DG real quick. They got no hamburger buns, whatever. But the guy next to me had a mask. This is in Arkansas, not in LA, not in this is like small town, 600 people. He had gloves on, and they were not. I'm not kidding. They were not just one of those like surgeon gloves. They were thick, black winter gloves. It was 65, if not 70 degrees today out here.
Why not?
The guy had
Safe, Marco.
and
Safety.
a mask. And I showed up in the aisle on purpose to look for bread. So I'm like going up and down, leaning to see if there is any bread, because. And he just immediately took off because he was obviously worried about getting sick from me. I'm like, okay, man,
It's
have a
sad,
good day.
man.
It's really, really sickening. I mean, if you
sad.
really think about it. So yeah, they're doing this because they know they can get away with it. And the balloon, it could have, should have. We're not going to be guessing. We know it's mostly a psyop.
I don't care.
Yeah, shit is going to hit the fan. There is going to be no electricity for a while, maybe a week, maybe a month.
I can tell you this. I ain't losing any sleep about it.
Me neither.
And at the end of the day, if it all does and it all goes.
If you are prepared, if you got your propane,
even
if you got the generators,
bro, I'm
you
good with
got
dying. I know where I'm going.
Yeah,
I'm,
exactly.
I'm not afraid to die.
Yep.
I'm not worrying about this stuff. I'm not entertaining silliness anymore.
And we can only control what we can control.
control
Like
what you
whatever
can
they're
control.
going to do with this balloon, if it was nuclear
I
weapon.
know we ain't going to starve though. I know that.
And I know those people, you guys that are listening, are not going to do that because you've been prepping. You've been prepping. You knew what was coming before it happened. They say, what is that saying? You got to look into history in order to know the future.
History repeats
History
itself.
repeating. If it doesn't, it rhymes. Was that Mark Twain or something?
I don't know who
Whatever,
it was.
but it makes sense because it happens every single time. But we're going to lead you off with that. I would not worry too much. Like I said, you can only control what you can control. If there is any major hiccup in the universe, we're all gone. If these idiots in
Come
office
what may,
across
baby.
the country, including Putin as well, if they decide to go nukes up, what are you going to do? There is nothing I can do about that.
I'm just going to make it extremely difficult for them. I'm going to have fun on the way out. You
Oh,
know what
I
mean?
will too.
But you're going to have
I
a
will too. I was not
hard
even
time.
supposed to be here in the first place. So I'm just, hey, this is like for me, my life has been a free roll.
You're going to have a
When you go through
hard
communism
time.
once, everything is easy later. Even if it comes again, you know what it is.
Yeah.
So it's not that big of a deal. So I think that attitude, if I leave you off with that, would help a lot of people to get set for this reset. And reset is communism, and communism's best friend is man-made famine. Prepare. We are out. And thank you again, Brian Norris, Homefront Radio on Spotify. If you want to listen more of his, it's long, but it's a lot of info that a lot of you, I believe, need to get into because this man is just. There's just a lot of just wealth of knowledge and experience that he has, literally boots on the ground across the globe, being around military and everything that's going on. It's not coming from some pundit that thinks this is what I believe it's going to happen. This is just facts. And if he does not know the answer, he's not just going to lead you the wrong way. And I really
I
appreciate
did my
that.
best not to.
Yeah. We'll be back hopefully next week or maybe by the end of this week. We are out.
Out.